Amelia, how are you?
Doing great, Lauren. Good to
It's
connect again.
it's nice to see you. Amelia, we know each other from way back. At least I know you because you were on the BCG composite photo that sat in front of my desk because I didn't really travel my first year. I was working in the Dallas office. So I know you probably better than you know me. But yeah, tell us about yourself.
Well, so you know the BCG story. I was there
Mhm.
for several years working on operations and organizational challenges in a variety of companies, ranging from technology to education. And then I was like, you know what? I'd like to see some of these things actually happen in the company, as opposed to get called away whenever your consulting project was done. And from there, I went into Kaplan, where I hung out for about 10 years doing a massive transformation project, really embedding learning science and learning engineering into the company. From Kaplan, I went off into the world of startups. So I had an amazing time hanging out at Magic Leap. And then COVID took me into the world of healthcare. And that was where I hung out for a little while, going from a lab that did molecular testing for COVID and then eventually into a Series A startup for healthcare. So it's been a crazy journey. And here I am back in consulting.
How did you, okay, so the difference between Kaplan and Magic Link seems to me to be like, that must have been so different. How did you leap from Kaplan to like such a crazy startup?
It is. And, I think for this, you really have to credit the power of networks. The person who reached out to me was Jose Baltazar, and he was actually in the BCG office in Dallas, I think long after you and me. And he was at Magic Leap and reached out and said, "Hey, are you interested?" And to be honest, I panic a little at the thought of startup because to me, startup is like, are they going to have money to pay me tomorrow? Of course, Magic Leap's not quite that story, right? I mean, they're rolling in, unicorn and billions of
Yeah.
dollars and things like that. But I was still a little concerned about the whole startup concept. But it was just interesting enough to get me enticed into. I was like, you know what? If I was ever going to dip my toe into a startup, Magic Leap's not a bad idea.
Hmm.
And that got me into the world where everything was fast, everything was crazy, people were running in all kinds of directions. And I realized that the talent that I have for organization, for operations, for kind of bringing the chaos under control and helping people move in one direction, I was like, this is where my skill really shines, right? When everyone's just kind of running around, I can kind of, manage the chaos and get it going. So startup is a happy sweet spot for me. I just love the energy that's in there.
Hmm. Um, what, so for me, that would make me absolutely mentally insane because the lack, as much as like I'm like, oh, I can structure things, it actually, I find an amazing amount of stress in bringing structure to operational chaos. But you smile when you talk about it. So like what's your secret? Like what is it? Does it do something for you? Like you seem to really enjoy it. Share, what is your secret for someone who would hide from that?
Well, I think it really depends on what gives you that dopamine high, right? I mean, for some people, it's, the order and the system. But for me, it's not so much the end result as it is the process of getting there. My satisfaction is in being able to see it all come together, which is why, just pure consulting in itself didn't really quite hit the sweet
Mm,
spot because I never got to see it come together. So it's the
yeah.
process of the creating that brings it together for me. So it's the end result's fantastic. I love when it runs smoothly and then I get bored, right? And then I'm looking for my next
Interesting.
crazy adventure to corral the chaos.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, it's totally different. I love finding the elegant solution. I love it. Like, I love looking at something that is a really, really hard problem, and everyone says things are all over the place. And I love vision. But part of this is actually like a visual thing. I love finding the answer, and then
Mhm.
I love the visualization of it. So, where a lot of people, I think PowerPoint is a necessary evil, for me, like it's like my art. Like, like I really, truly love it. To have to sit in a room of 50 people that are disagreeing for me is like, I just want to get under the table and make slides. So we are so happy to have someone who is working with us who really enjoys that, because I think managing the operational chaos is really much, much, much more important to the business than solving problems and making good slides. Well, I wanted to ask you about something else. You and I talked about this. I didn't set you up with this today. We were first reconnecting, and it was about homeschooling. So you have mid-aged children at home. I have a young one, and you are really passionate about homeschooling, and you and your husband have done some interesting methods with your kids over the years. And I really wanted to just learn more about that.
Certainly. So we got into homeschooling through a long series of discussions in the first place. My husband and I are both the results of public school, and we are like, well, we didn't turn out too badly. So, how terrible could public school be? But I think what my husband really wanted to do was to be able to allow the children to cultivate their own interests and to not kill their love of learning with some kind of curriculum over which they had very little control. So we have been able to embed learning in between their interests. I'll give you a very specific example. My eldest son, he's 16 now, and when he was 2 years old, he didn't want to shower, like just didn't want to step into the tub. So in desperation, I bought him this little toy sharks, and that looked realistic. And he fell in love with the sharks, and then after that, wouldn't get out of the tub because his sharks had to stay wet. And we kept feeding his interest in marine science. We've taken him to aquariums all around, including the Georgia Aquarium where the whale sharks are. My husband volunteered to do turtle rescue in Florida. That's a
And
thing.
you guys live in Florida, so
Of
that,
course. And
yeah.
he's, just to bring my son along so he could be a part of turtle rescue as a teenager, which he was technically not allowed to volunteer when he was that young. We've sent him to whale camp. We've sent him to all kinds of things that feed his interest. And we're able to do that because we can weave that into a very flexible curriculum that adapts to his schedule as opposed to forcing him to adapt to school and then try to fit it in between the slots. So we find that it's worked for us. It's not been an easy path. So I tend to work full time. My husband, for the most part, manages the children and the curriculum. We have very, very different opinions on how to get things done. He's
Mhm.
much more flexible. I'm like, where's your schedule? Why wasn't this done? Where's the four
Well,
things
you're
you're
the
supposed to
operational
turn into?
person, right?
Right?
Yeah, there you
Exactly,
go.
right? So I'm like, where's all this stuff? But we've managed to come to a happy coexistence on, in the end, as long as they're interested and they're passionate and they develop the skills to keep learning. I think that's the most important thing. It's not about how much you memorize because that's all going to go away in the world of
It doesn't matter.
ChatGPT. It doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
about how you learn and how your brain is open, how you're asking the right questions. So that's what we're hoping to inculcate in our kids.
That's amazing. So they're still at home. Now, do you work from home?
Yes, I work from home. So we converted one of our studies. So I'm like my little own room now, as opposed to like a little corner of my bedroom, which is where I used to be. So
Wow.
they work from home. And frankly, it's been like this for a long time. When I was at Kaplan, I pretty much worked from home. All of and Magic Leap, I went into work, but it was really nearby. And this is the part I think I love most about being able to be a consultant on your own terms
Hmm.
because you're able to select the projects that work best for you. For me, it's important to know that if my kids fall ill, I'm literally a shout away as opposed to half a continent away, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
doesn't work for me anymore. So we've gotten used to being around each other and we love being around each other.
Yeah. And were they born when you were at BCG, or were they born after? I can't remember. He's 16, so he must have been born
One
around that
was
time.
one was born during BCG and then
Okay.
one shortly thereafter, and the third one
Yeah.
came along much later.
Yeah. I had an incident where it all became very clear. My child wasn't born until much, 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 much later. But I had an incident that really secured it for me. I was in a room and there was another consultant we were working with, and she got a call from her nanny, and the look on her face.
Uh,
And she's got to get on a plane. And her son was fine. It was like, can't remember what it was. He had fallen, but it was going to require an emergency room trip.
right.
And I just, at that moment, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids, but if I do, like, that's not going to work for me. Like, I
No.
still, to this day, I get choked up about it, just thinking about now, with your own child, you understand how she must have felt. Yeah, that must be really hard. I have a different opinion on working from home. So this is not my home. I have an office in an office building. After COVID, I worked from home for like 5 years. And after COVID, I was like, well, I'm done with this. I have my little cave. Today I've turned the lights off because it is my little cave. And I have all sorts of little wellness gadgets that I keep behind me. And it's my retreat because, like I said, I'm the person who wants to go under the table and hide. And so it's important for me to be able to have this space where I can be quiet and focused. And then when I go home, I'm home, right? Like I, I can truly compartmentalize. And that's just what works for me. But to each their own, I say. I love like being able to learn what works for other people, but make sure we can offer things that are flexible. So,
Well, one of
well,
the things
cool.
I have is two signs on the door that I alternate depending on the importance of the meeting. One says
Okay.
shush, enter quietly, meeting in progress. The other one says do not enter unless you're dying or the house is on fire. So, depending on the importance of the meeting, the sign goes on the door.
Okay. Okay. That's a great tip. Did you make the signs yourself or
Oh,
did you?
absolutely. No, I
Okay.
made the signs myself.
They didn't like give them to you for Mother's Day where they were like, Mom, we think you need a little bit of space. Wow, that's cool. No, that's a helpful trick. I never got that far. Well, cool. Well, thank you for taking a couple of minutes with me out of your day. And we are super excited to have you working with us and to be able to reconnect. And I know you're already making great impact with the client, and they really appreciate you. And so do I. So thank you so much, Amelia.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Lauren.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.